Hello, fellow subscribers, brothers and sisters in Christ. How serious should we be about an approaching famine? Are we to prepare for a famine, especially if we know that it is approaching? Let's see what the Bible says about famines. There are plenty of references to such famines, and the most popular would be this one in Genesis chapter 41. And incidentally, it's a 7-year famine that was preceded by 7 years of abundance. Aren't we all approaching a 7-year-old famine in the Great Tribulation soon? Let's read. And it came to pass in the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river, and behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored, kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow, and kine are cows. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke, and that was the first dream of Pharaoh, of the 7 lean cows devouring the 7 fat cows. And he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good, and behold, 7 10 ears and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 17 ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. So Pharaoh had 2 dreams which had the same repeating theme, as if the second one was to emphasize the first dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. Because if you may recall, this person who speaking to Pharaoh had met Joseph whilst they were in prison, and we dreamed a dream. In one night, I and he, we dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, an Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream he did interpret. And it came to pass as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, because you understand Joseph was still imprisoned up till that very moment. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give me, Pharaoh, an answer of peace. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, In my dream, behold, I stood upon the bank of the river, which would be the river Nile in that instance. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, as I already said, cows, fat-fleshed and well-favored, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill-favored and lean-fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for boldness. And the lean and the ill-favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine or cows. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored, as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up in one stalk, full and good, and behold, 7 ears withered, thin, and blasted. with the east wind sprung up after them. And the 10 ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, and there was none that could declare it to me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. So actually, Joseph is telling Pharaoh that those two dreams were one. The second dream was repeating the theme of the first one. And the 17 and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And I highlighted this verse because I want you to take to your heart the fact that the famine that is about to come is going to be very grievous. And when Jesus said that those days of the tribulation will be the worst that humanity has ever seen, he really meant it. And this famine that's coming is going to be the worst that humanity has ever seen. Very grievous, exceedingly grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. And let me read that last verse to you from the New King James Version. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. So God wanted to emphasize the Pharaoh that this thing was established by God. This is not a coincidence, a coincidental dream. Therefore, just as Joseph prepared for the 7 year famine, so must we prepare for the 7 year tribulation. If you are a born again Christian, you know what's happening, the mass animal deaths, the purposeful slaughter of animals in the name of H1N1 and COVID, the purposeful dumping of milk because the supply chain has been broken, um, birds and chickens being culled because of swine flu and bird flu. Likewise, the millions of pigs that have been slaughtered, even recently in China. So, to add insult to injury, in short, not only are we approaching 7 years of the most grievous famine that humanity has ever witnessed, but it is being exacerbated by the global elites who want to hasten the famine upon us so that they can have their goal of depopulation. And that's not to mention the locusts and the floods, which are wreaking havoc on the crops and the harvest and the droughts. Everything is in place for a really bad famine, the worst that we shall ever see. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Here it is. There will be 7 years of abundance throughout the whole land of Egypt, but afterwards there will come 7 years of famine, and Egypt will forget all the abundance. And that's what I keep telling my own children. God is merciful in that he provides sufficient warning to his people before bringing judgment, because judgment is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. One of them is famine. He did it with Noah and his family before bringing the worldwide flood. This principle is also amply demonstrated here in Genesis 41, where God, through Joseph, lets the Pharaoh know he is going to see to it that there will be 7 abundant years of food growth before bringing about a devastating famine. Joseph advises the Pharaoh to be diligent in setting aside a certain percentage of the harvest to prepare for the coming lean years. Pharaoh agrees, and the law is established that throughout Egypt that 20% of all produce is to be stored every year during those 7 years of abundance. I think we need to give Pharaoh a lot of credit for trusting Joseph at his word and taking action. It's pointless listening about these mass animal deaths and droughts and floods and culling of animals, by the globalists in the name of this virus going around, that H1N1, bird flu, swine flu, and not taking action. You need to take action about it. I think we need to give Pharaoh a lot of credit. Yes, I already read that. It's difficult to restrain oneself from living high when things seem to be going well and the future seems so bright. I suspect the local population wasn't too happy about being forced to set aside quite a large portion of their crops for some future disaster that to their minds would probably never happen. They probably viewed Joseph and the Pharaoh as two Semitic cousins coming together to conspire against the people to confiscate food from the innocent local population and make themselves richer. This idea of Jews working behind the scenes to undermine society for their benefit has always been the nature of anti Semitic accusations. Now, one important takeaway I get from Pharaoh's dreams is that I believe the times we are living in today is similar to the 7 years of abundance Egypt had before the 7 year tribulation. I truly resonate with that. Right now, we are living in a time of abundance and 20. Yes, you can pop down your local shop and you can buy whatever you want and whatever you like, and the shelves are stacked full all the time. As soon as they empty, they are refilled again. But it's not going to be so for long. However, we are at that point in time just before the greatest tribulation mankind has ever or will ever experience begins. We are on its doorstep. We know this because all the signs we have been told to look for have happened or are happening. The Bible tells us the generation who witnesses the return of Jerusalem back into the hands of the Jews will be the generation that witnesses the coming of the Lord. However, we are also told that before that glorious event occurs, mankind will go through a time so horrible it is unimaginable, and forget about pre-trib rapture. I don't intend to offend anybody. Indeed, deeply from the bottom of my heart, I would wish that we were to be raptured just before or at the beginning of the Great Tribulation, but the Bible tells us otherwise. We are promised tribulation by Jesus. And Jesus Christ himself says in Matthew chapter 24 that those who endure till the end, the same shall be saved. And when he was speaking those who endure till the end, he was talking about those who endure till the end of either their lives or the tribulation. I'm not saying that there isn't going to be a rapture. There is going to be a rapture. Believers will be raptured before God's wrath is poured out. Do not make the mistake of equating the Great Tribulation with God's wrath. They are two separate and distinct events. Moreover, the Bible talks about tribulation saints. Some of us will die. Some of us will die for Christ's name's sake. So those will be the tribulation saints. Then those alive and remaining shall be caught up in the rapture after the dead have been resurrected. You know all this. Let's carry on because I went off on a tangent here. Yeshua, that is Jesus, told us to prepare by surrendering our lives over to Him. So that is the first point of your preparation. Get your house in order. No amount of physical preparation will prepare you otherwise for what is coming. We have to exercise faith like the heathen Pharaoh did in Joseph's time. Just as the people of Egypt had to prepare for the 7-year famine by setting aside a portion out of their abundance, so must we set aside some of our time, our wealth, and our selfish interests for the Lord. Our time. Time is short. Tribulation is on our doorstep, and I already told you the time is coming when then night is coming during which no one will be able to work, which means you won't be able to spread and share the gospel, at least not so easily during the tribulation. You certainly won't be able to do it online by putting up a video on YouTube, and you won't be allowed to distribute gospel tracts in the tribulation, especially when the Antichrist has taken his seat of power. So if you have to do any evangelizing, now is the time, before the church age is over. So therefore, we must set aside some of our time, our wealth, and our selfish interests for the Lord. Another point I am compelled to hammer home. Just as God had only entrusted the truth to Joseph, in our day and age, He has only entrusted the truth to His believers. And this is written in bold for a reason. Do you understand what that means? Have you noticed that when you speak to people who are either unbelievers or they aren't born again Christians, have you noticed that when you speak to them of the coming tribulation and what is happening around us, how they look at you as if you are some weird some weird idiot? They don't understand. They don't see what is happening and what is to come. That means that you, as a born again Christian, you have been entrusted with the truth because God has only entrusted the truth to His believers. So you hold this truth. You can share it, of course, and then the people around you and your family, they can either accept it or reject it. I am talking about those who have been sanctified by the blood of Yeshua. It is you and me. I am talking about the true spiritual Israel comprised of both faithful Jewish and Gentile believers. Think about it. The best and brightest minds and the most prestigious leaders weren't able to discern the truth in Joseph's day, and they can't discern it today. You're not going to hear it from the mainstream media, that's for sure. Most of the world's secular and religious leaders are just in the dark, as were Pharaoh's wise men and magicians. So please prepare. After getting your house in order, it would be prudent, because we are called to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. So therefore we are called to prepare. So it would be prudent in your case that you set aside some food and water and maybe some items to barter with. But from what I'm seeing and many others are seeing, fiat money, the kind that you would find stashed within a person's bedroom, saved for a rainy day, that will be totally useless. So think what you're going to use to barter with. I also read, I forget where I heard it, that probably bartering will be illegal during the Great Tribulation, so that people will be forced to take the mark of the beast. There will be no other way to buy and sell. Get down on your knees today and ask God, what is my role? What should I do to prepare for what may be the most challenging period mankind has ever gone through? It is going to be the most, not maybe, it's going to be the most challenging period of mankind. Trust that He will answer you. And then when He gives you an answer, get off your butt and take action, like Pharaoh did. So I hope you take this message to heart. Your Lord has revealed all this to you. You know what's coming down the pipeline. You know it's going to be bad. You know it's going to be worse than what we have just read now in Genesis chapter 41. You are to prepare. Don't be like the stupid virgins. You remember those 10 virgins, the 5 wise and the 5 foolish. The 5 wise virgins took oil with them. They used it. The 5 wise virgins didn't prepare. They didn't have any oil and they were caught outside in the dark. Therefore, likewise, pray unceasingly and be prepared. God bless you all.